In order to improve the airlines, Uganda has been spending billions of dollars on buying aircraft and investing in them to improve management and maintenance. In his capacity as Uganda's State Minister for Kampala, Honorable Chofatogabe Kabuye announced the government's agreement with the Democratic Republic of Congo to allow airplanes to begin operating in Goma and Kisangani, among other cities, as the airline looks to grow.
Commitment was also secured from the Democratic Republic of Congo to clear Uganda Airlines to start flying to Goma, Lubumbashi, and Kisangani as additional destinations. Further to that, during the business forum, the Equity Bank Limited accepted to create a $5 billion credit facility to business activities between Uganda and DRC. 3,000 business deals were reached between Uganda businessmen and their Congolese counterparts.
Additionally, African Airlines Association President Jennifer Bamtulaki claims that Uganda's airline anticipated that a young, inexperienced airline would result in significant losses for the nation. However, since being elected, she has committed to expanding partnerships, funding research, and collaborating with others to fortify the airline in order to create a profitable space for the growth of the economy and contribute to the gross domestic product.
When I took on the presidency of AFRA in December 22, I pledged to focus on 4 areas, and which are cutting the bureaucracy and red tape of regulatory regimes that impede intra-Africa connectivity. Uganda Airlines is a victim of this. Creating pathways for increased partnerships and collaboration within the continent to reduce the fragility of startup airlines. As you're all aware, we are a startup airline, and that's one of our mandates to change as AFRA.
According to the Auditor General's report, Uganda lost more than 100 billion shillings in 2022, while the airline also suffered a loss of 266 billion shillings in 2023. The management is still under constant pressure to figure out how to make the airlines profitable enough to survive and grow in the industry. It will take a significant investment of funds in research and operations to overcome this and prevent losses. Samuel Chirimunda, Smart 24 TV, Business Today.
All right, now DDA is set to celebrate the June as the Dairy Month. The Dairy Development Authority, DDA, has joined the rest of the world to commemorate the June Dairy Month that is scheduled to take place on the 23rd of June 2023 in Sembabule District. And according to Samson Akinkiza, the Executive Director, DDA, they will be seeking to stabilize farm gate pricing and encourage local consumption. Pedison Mumbere has details.
In every year, June is recognized as an International Dairy Month to honor dairy farmers, processors who offer beneficial fresh milk and milk products. According to Samson Akanchiza, the Executive Director, Dairy Development Authority, DDA, the June Dairy Month will be celebrated in Sembabule District on June 23, 2023, as part of the strategy to stabilize farm gate pricing and encouraging local consumption.
And we are showcasing the growth of the dairy sector in the country. Importantly, we are looking at promotion of local consumption. Currently, we are at 63 liters per capita per person. The recommended is 200 liters. So what are we saying? If we consume our milk produced, we address the 2 things. One, we stabilize the farm gate price, and that goes with the income at household. We also nourish our population.
Akanjiza notes that the entire dairy business will be sustainable if everybody plays their part across the dairy value chain, adding that they are pushing technologies that will increase environmental sustainability.
The dairy sector is going to be sustainable if all partners do their part across the value chain. But also looking at the climate change issues, we are trying to be pushing technologies that will increase environmental sustainability in terms of having change the nutrition, especially feeding the dairy cows, but also to look at the breeds that are adaptive to those environments because of the climate change. So
it shouldn't be forgotten that the Minister of Agriculture, Animal Industry and Fisheries, Frank Tumwebaze, tasked the Dairy Development Authority with developing regulations that will guide the certification of dairy farmers and cattle breeders in the country, as well as encouraging people about milk quality through initiatives that will raise the standard of milk sold.
So you've taken this, somebody else will buy your milk properly in a good environment. So why should my milk, me a very compliant person, fetch the same price? So this is a conversation we should even have with the milk buyers. We should even certify these farmers then. That's how we should have the distinction. Just like Honorable, I was challenging in a Greek, that we should also start certifying breeders. Yes, if I go to buy a bull from somebody's farm, it shouldn't be his story for me to believe. They just go and buy things, small bulls from the market. You see this one, it's from Rwanda.
The new regulatory framework will monitor breeding and on-farm procedures, as well as rewarding excellent milk farmers by ensuring that they command high prices both domestically and internationally. According to Frank Tumwebaze, milk products on the market are of poor quality because of bad farming procedures used by farmers.
People to do it, but if you want to be a distinguishable breeder, let's certify you. People from Tanzania, people from Burundi, people from Namibia, if they Google Uganda, certified breeders, they come. And for you to be certified, because even breeding has a linkage to milk, isn't it? Yes. So breeding and on-farm practices. So I think DDA, let's look at that. That's how we shall improve the value chain. You can be supported by Nagri, even narrow. So I want to assure you that farming can work and is working or will work more. Because the question is, these farmers we hear in Netherlands, these farmers we hear in Israel, what is it that they do that we cannot do?
Uganda produces 3.2 billion liters of milk per year. In 2021, 800 billion liters of milk were consumed within the country, with over 2 billion liters available for export annually. During the 2019-2020 fiscal year, Uganda earned $131.5 billion. That's approximately 491.4 billion from milk exports. That's according to statistics from the Dairy Development Authority. Kenya, which is the biggest export market for Uganda's liquid milk, has occasionally banned dairy products from the country, resulting in too low market. Milk producers have hope that this will be sorted sooner than later. Bedson Mumbere, Smart 24 TV, Business Today.
All right, now as we move further, we talk enhancing regional trade. In a passionate address during the Kenya National Chamber of Commerce and Industry Coast Region Delegates meeting, the East African Assembly Member of Parliament, Suleiman Shabai, demanded a change in leadership within the chamber. The Member of Parliament highlighted the numerous challenges faced by businesses, both big and small, under the previous regime, urging for a fresh start to address the pressing issues hindering economic growth in the region. Naomi Mutumba has details.
Kenya's commitment to fostering economic cooperation among its neighboring countries has long been recognized, and now the nation is taking a significant step forward by championing the creation of a single chamber of commerce for East Africa. The proposed chamber would serve as a unified platform to streamline trade activities, facilitate cross-border investments, and strengthen business partnerships across the region. Speaking during the Kenya National Chamber of Commerce Coast Region Delegates meeting, the East African Assembly MP Suleiman Shabai called for a change of leadership in the chamber due to challenges faced by both big and small businesses in the hands of the previous regime. Shabai, who is also the chairman of the Yala Committee on Trade and Investment, said the role of the chamber is to help and support both big businesses and small, and urged the new leaders to take responsibility of offering the required support.
Chamber inavyokwenda na hii chamber inavyoendeshwa hivi sasa, mfanyabiashara hajafaidika.
Where the chamber is moving, it has not helped the business person. It is the people of the chamber who enjoy the facilitation of the chamber, but not the businessmen. My ambition as the communication person of Yala is to ensure that all these chambers of 7 nations work together as business people. I believe that if this is done, then there will be wealth creation in all East African countries.
And that is why we are suggesting that we should have a structured, a formal, and a long-term way of engaging the county government and both the national government.
According to the chamber, the call by government to ask for small businesses to pay 5,000 Kenyan shillings must be valued. So far, the chamber collects 12 million Kenyan shillings, which needs to help their regional chambers. The priority now is to support small traders and work on trade ties both within the country and across the East African region through upscaling the relationship between the national chamber and the regional chapters and increase capacity building within the chamber. Mustafa Ramadan added that there is need to build all the regional chapters for the national chamber to be the giant it deserves to be. He adds that people need to know that the chamber is a place to go for solutions, as well as working on maritime connectivity through Africa trading with Africa.
In the East African community and even beyond the East African community. So our promise when we go to the headquarters is that we are going to have the East African Chamber of Commerce Council, ambayo nafikiria watu wa pwani mtatupatia mtu mmoja.
People from the coast, you will give us 1 or 2 people to sit on the board of National East African Council.
The successful establishment of a single chamber of commerce for East Africa would undoubtedly strengthen economic ties, promote regional integration, and unlock the untapped potential of the region, setting an example for other parts of the continent and the world. Naomi Mtumba, Smart 24 TV, Business Today.
All right, now Kenya's top importer turns out to be Saudi Arabia, according to the latest figures. In a significant shift, Saudi Arabia has overtaken China, India, and the United Arab Emirates to become Kenya's top importer or import market. Now, this highlights the significant role of petroleum products in driving the country's trade deficit. We have details.
Kenya's oil marketers recently sought a court interjection to hold government-to-government deal that would allow the importation of fuel on credit from the United Arab Emirates. However, data released from Kenya National Bureau of Statistics revealed that imports from Saudi Arabia surged, reaching 32.27 billion Kenyan shillings in March. This marked a threefold increase compared to the previous month, largely driven by rising demand for diesel. The surge in imports from Saudi Arabia was primarily due to the increased shipment of gas oil, diesel, which was previously sourced from the United Arab Emirates. Particularly, this trend occurred before the arrival of the first consignment under the government-to-government fuel import deal signed between Kenya, Saudi Arabia, and the United Arab Emirates. In March, Saudi Arabia's import bill topped the list at 32.27 Kenyan billion shillings, surpassing China at 30.34 Kenyan billion shillings, India 27.32 billion Kenyan shillings, and the United Arab Emirates at 13.93 billion Kenyan shillings. For a decade, China has been Kenya's primary source of market for various goods, including electronic equipment, machinery, iron, steel, plastic, and furniture. However, high global petroleum prices have led to petroleum products becoming the primary driver of Kenya's import bill. The increased sourcing of petroleum products from the United Arab Emirates had previously propelled the Middle East country to the top spot in terms of import value. Nevertheless, the recent surge in imports from Saudi Arabia indicates a significant shift in Kenya's trade dynamics.
All right, now, internationally, a ransomware attack believed to be masterminded by a Russian group has caused widespread fear among its businesses in the West, with concern majorly centered around the magnitude of its impact since the attack involves multiple chains. We have more in this report.
A number of global companies have been affected by the ransomware attack, which has threatened their operations. Experts warn that the extent of the damage could soon be felt worldwide as a result of the impact. The attack has been linked to the C10 ransomware syndicate, which operates in Russian Federation and targeted users of MoveIt, a file-sharing software used by many international businesses. Businesses such as Zilis, a UK service provider that serves renowned entities such as British Airways, the BBC and many more. The company reported that a small number of its customers were affected by the cyber security professionals, by what the cyber security professionals have termed as a supply chain breach, because the compromise of a single software provider can have such profound impact on its users. Other entities include the government of Nova Scotia, the University of Rochester, among others. The accused gang, however, distanced itself from allegations, claiming it doesn't attack government institutions, cities or police agencies. A move experts say is an attempt to evade responsibility.
All right, now Business Today does take a break. When we do return, we talk Uganda's public debt, which is soaring to 86.6 trillion. Stick around, those conversations are coming up shortly. Smart 24, driving business.
The pressure is getting worse. Royalty is at the ultimate test. It's the football finals. It's non-stop football and it's pressure to pressure live on GOTV. In front of Alex! Reconnect to GOTV Max at just 49,000 shillings to catch all the action live. Dial *206# or use the My GOTV app to reconnect. GOTV Uganda. Love it.
Cooking oil like no other makes your meal so sweet and scrumptious. The taste of Uganda, yeah, the taste of Uganda, the taste.
Family. He must have a maid because at our home we do not work.
Conductor Masao.
Owa, obadde olobye ku ssimu?
Yamunange anti yo TV enkolera.
Nyumirwa omulembe omupya ogujjudde ebisanyusa omuli emikutu gya TV egisukka mu 8 n'egya radio nga kw'otadde ne zifirimu ng'osinziirira wonna w'oli. Genda mu App Store oteeke app ya GOTV channels ku ssimu yo olwo onyumirwe ennaku 3 ng'olabira bwereere ewatali kozesa data. GOTV channels.
Smart 24, driving business. All right, we'll be back from the break and you're still watching Business Today. Now, as we dig deeper in understanding Uganda's public debt, the total amount of the public debt in Uganda has risen to 86.6 trillion shillings, which is higher than the 50% limit that is generally accepted. And as mandated by the International Monetary Fund, Uganda's 39% when it comes to the debt GDP has as well increased, exceeding the limit. Petson Mumbere had a one-on-one interview with Christine Biringirwa, the progress manager at the Uganda Debt Network, to make sense of what this means to the country and, of course, the economy and what should be done to reduce this burden.
A very good evening, The View. We're here at Uganda Debt Network trying to discuss the debt to GDP ratio. The debt to GDP ratio is a measure that compares countries' debt portfolio with what it produces. And the same measure gives you, or it gets to you the ability of the country to pay back that debt. As of now, the country's GDP or the country's debt is standing at 86.7 trillion. With me is Madam Christine Biringirwa, who is the program manager at Uganda Debt Network. Together with how we are going to make sense and explain to people what does it mean to have a bigger debt like this. A very good evening, Madam Christine. How's Uganda Debt Network at the moment?
Thank you. Good evening to all our viewers.
Yep.
Uganda Debt Network is a policy advocacy organization, and we were formed to lobby for debt relief in 1996.
Yeah.
And that was achieved. Uganda actually achieved relief in terms of debt, external debt,
yep,
of course. But unfortunately, as the years move on, we see that we have again gone down the dangerous path of increased debt. And as we speak, our debt is currently at 86.6 trillion, like you rightfully note.
Let us first talk about that. If we keep on mentioning our debt increasing day and night, I remember last time we started at 87, now we're at 80, we started with 76, we are now at 86 point something. What does that mean to our country at the moment?
Well, simply put, if our debt is growing at such a high rate, that means the risk is extended to our service delivery.
Okay.
If, for instance, our budget for the next coming financial year, 23-24, is 52.7 trillion. But of that, our non-discretionary, which is the funds that are committed, that you cannot touch, in other words, committed to payment of debt, is 27 trillion. But the funds that you can touch as Parliament and distribute to your other sectors to run the business of this country is about 25.1 trillion.
Yeah.
That means that debt is taking a bigger share of our financial envelope.
I have been I've been having some sorts of discussions with the people in government, especially from the Ministry of Finance. And they've been telling us that our debt stress, much as we call it a stress, but it is in the manageable measures. There's no reason why we should make an alarm of the country's debt at the moment. We are doing okay. And then we have civil society organizations. We also have some political actors who are saying, no, we are bad. But this is government that is telling us that we're okay when it comes to managing our debt portfolio.
Well, what we know as civil society is that we are not okay in terms of managing our debt, because like I've already painted the picture for you as an example. In the next financial year, our debt obligations or servicing our debt is going to take a bigger chunk of our resource envelope compared to servicing the rest of our sectors,
okay,
our other services. As an example, we have quite a number of frameworks and guidelines that should help us as a country in managing our debt. And these were, of course, set up by government, by the different, especially the Ministry of Finance.
Okay.
For instance, we have the Public Debt Management Framework 2018, and these set thresholds beyond which we should not go as a country. Take an example. While the Public Debt Management Framework says for your interest payments, domestic interest payments to revenue, should not go beyond 12%. If they go beyond 12%, the money that you're collecting as URA, the money that is going to pay your domestic debt interest payment, if it goes above 12%, that means you're now taking away money that you should leave within the economy to help, the country run, the economy run. But now we're at 19% for generally both domestic and external debt. The money from your resource envelope, from maybe URA, that should be going to pay that interest should not be more than 15%, but we are at 22%. So if we are exceeding and flouting this threshold, government had actually foreseen that beyond this, you'll be getting into red, and we have already crossed them. So we need to see ourselves get back on that road if we are to sustain our debt, but also to have it under manageable levels.
I want to ask one question. Like I said, I always talk to government, people in government, especially from the Uganda Bureau of Statistics and then from the Ministry of Finance. They're saying, but NGOs also, you make people feel as if the country doesn't belong to them. For example, you come up with figures which make people feel like the country is going into, I don't know how even to mention it. People feel like the government is going to die anytime from now because of debts, and yet if they compare Uganda or the country Uganda with other African countries, they are even worse than us. Yes.
So, well, I don't know why or where the government gets that from, because as civil society, the figures and the statistics that we use are all from government. The statistics we use, for instance, the debt, our debt as a country, the 86.6 trillion, is from the Bank of Uganda report.
Statistics, yes.
It is. The debt to GDP ratios are from Ministry of Finance. What I'm quoting, the Public Debt Management Framework, Ministry of Finance. So what we do is just to just bring out these figures to the public and then explain to them what it means. What's the impact if we continue on this path?
So I was asking you, Madam Christian Berger, that we are going to talk about the National Development Plan 3s. We started with 1, 2, 3, now we're at 3. But according to government, National Development Plan Authority, they're saying it's the performance of National Development Plan 3 is only 17%. What does that mean?
Yeah, precisely our concern as well, because the National Planning Authority came out and did the midterm review, like you correctly say, and says our performance is at 17% as a country. But remember, the National Development Plan is our plan as a country that we present and say this should deliver us to maybe a certain goal. Okay. We should have achieved this in the next 5 years. But when we see that we are at 17% midterm, for instance, our debt from the beginning of the National Development Plan 3 has grown from 57 trillion to 86 trillion. We want to think that maybe the debt that has been acquired during that time, most of it has been put into servicing our economy, for instance. But that has not been so, and that is what we are telling the population, not trying to alarm them, but to tell them that, look here, out of the 69 projects, maybe the capital projects that had been planned under NDP 3 to deliver us to maybe to improve our economy and have us, but we have we are only on course with 6 projects, meaning that about 63 over 60 projects are not on course. If we have planned, for instance, in this current financial year, we had planned for 11 projects, to finance 11 projects in the NDP3. But by December last year, that was half year, we had not put resources or made any release in favor of those projects.
But can a country move without going for loans?
Well, what we always say here as at UDN, and indeed as government, borrowing is not bad. Borrowing is not bad, and what we push for is responsible borrowing, though. We can always borrow, but we do not want to borrow without, without having a plan why we are going to use these resources. But as we also borrow, even when we have a plan, how do we manage these resources that we are borrowing?
Is that what you call responsible borrowing?
Exactly. We want to see us borrow responsibly.
Okay. For
For instance, I'll share with you a report that the World Bank produced. That was way back in 2016. But they said that for every capital infrastructure that we spent $1 on as Uganda, we were able to generate about 7/10 of a dollar. That is even less than what you put in. And that is because of corruption, right? But for the US, even before 2001, for every $1 that they injected in their capital infrastructure, they were able to generate about $6 worth. So you see the difference.
Let me tell you this.
So we are borrowing.
There's one time when I went to Uganda Bureau of Statistics and we had a conversation with the ED, that's Dr. Chris Mukiza.
Yes.
And he was like, Ugandans followed so much World Bank statistics and you feel whatever they produce is okay. You don't want to follow the statistics of WOBOS, which is, they say the World Bank people are there in their countries, and why should we follow their statistics and leave what so that was also a concern from him. So he thinks maybe what comes from World Bank is
but government has not come out to clearly tell the public that please, these statistics of World Bank are misleading, because we see government following that. The debt to GDP thresholds, the one for East Africa and for Uganda indeed, that is by the World Bank. So if we are to, and I think one of the reasons that we always have to follow, because Uganda is not independent, we are dependent on each other as countries, and like I had earlier told you, since we borrow from the World Bank under the IDA window, we are also assessed by the World Bank. There's what they call, there's a diagnostic tool they call the CPIA. That is the Country Policy Institutional Assessment. So as they give you their loans, and of course for them they give us concessional loans, which are cheaper of course, and grants as well. They always assess to see how much of these loans and grants should they extend to you. For instance, last year for Uganda we were assessed, but there is one of the parameters that they assess on transparency, accountability and corruption.
Okay.
We were under average, we were under the borrower's average, while we were at about 2.5 and the borrower's average was 2.9. Yeah, so such ratings also impact on the amounts and the level of concessional lending or borrowing that you get from the World Bank. So if you have your maybe corruption cases and scandals and in the country, I'll just maybe talk about the Mabati scandal. It's the one that is still fresh. What they will do is they will follow up. To what extent are you bringing these public officials, MPs, government officials, ministers, to what extent are they being brought to book? For instance, are they being taken to court? Are they being made to pay? How are their cases?
Are we recovering the money?
Exactly. So if they don't see that happening, then that also impacts on the level of concessional borrowing that you get from them. And remember, our concessional borrowing has now gone down. While it still forms a bigger part of our loans, but it has gradually decreased from about 74% in 2017 to now 62. We, I think, at around 62%.
I have a concern. Yesterday we were at Uganda Revenue Authority. There's a concern that most of the Ugandans don't like pay tax. And we all know that through paying tax, it's a one way of reducing the burden of borrowing from different countries. But I think even Ugandans are not willing to pay tax, and that's why maybe we are not hitting the target somehow, somewhere.
Yeah.
But do you think even Ugandans as people also have a problem?
Well, I wouldn't rush to say that Ugandans have a problem, Pedson, because even at a personal level, look at it. If I am giving you my money and I do not see any value that comes from that money, why should I keep paying you? So while we want to credit, by the way, you are
building roads, hospitals. That's what they told us. That at least roads and hospitals.
But we do not see this infrastructure, the roads,
electricity,
the potholes. No, you see, Pedson.
Yes.
What we are seeing, well, URA has actually performed. It has tried to perform its best. It has brought as much as possible more numbers into the taxable bracket. But what is happening with the money that we are collecting from URA? I've told you, URA is going to collect 29 trillion from 25 this coming financial year. But none of that is going to finance service delivery. Actually, the money for financing service delivery as a country is reducing. All that is going to debt obligations. But even as it goes to debt obligations, we see, for example, our domestic arrears as a country continue to grow at now 7 trillion from 4 last financial year.
I know.
Yes, and how much of this are we going to pay in this coming financial year's budget? Less than 500 billion. So I mean, if you're not going to pay national water, why shouldn't national water disconnect the hospitals like what we've been seeing? But now if I cannot, as a Ugandan, go to the hospital and get a good service, why? I'm not discouraging payment of taxes. Of course, we should all pay our taxes.
Okay.
But we also want to see our worth, the worth that we are paying for. So if I am paying my taxes, I want to receive good services from my hospital. I want to move on a road that does not have potholes. But if we are paying taxes, maybe people are discouraged because they are paying taxes. They do not see maybe improved service delivery. That is probably why people are dodging their taxes.
But now, as Christine, do you see the problem that this debt burden going down at some point, maybe, if they follow the advices that you people are giving them, or you people are giving government?
Well, of course, what we advise government is for the best. I hope and I think they also know and see this. But it takes will. It takes the willingness of government, the political will, the technical will, to sit back down and say, well, we have put in place these frameworks, and we have digressed from them. Let's get back to them. Maybe say there's a lot of corruption, for example. Let's try to curb this and free resources that we can, we always give them advice. For example, there's a revenue mobilization strategy, for example, by Ministry of Finance, which they put out in 2020. But from the time they put this out, how far, to what extent have they supported, for instance, the local government to tailor their strategies as well to this national revenue mobilization strategy? That's one of the things. But two, we are also encouraging government to try as much as possible and bring this revenue collection, especially by the local governments, make it I mean, things are going if we reduce the human touch, in this collection process. And that also helps with corruption, with dealing with corruption. But even as we advise government on how to improve and strengthen their mobilization strategies, like we had already talked about the rationalization, free some resources, we also want to emphasize that this will be useless if we don't plug the loopholes, the holes that are existing, the corruption, for example, where we see the resources leaking. So we want to see us plug these holes in the area of corruption, as well as increase the revenue mobilization.
Thank you, Madam Christine Berenjira. That's Madam Christine Berenjira from Uganda Debt Network. These are some of the advices that we are giving us, both CSOs and other government stakeholders. They're saying this is the time we should work on corruption. This is the time we should invest where we expect some money or some income that will help to grow this economy. And have been doing so. Let's get back to the studios.
Thank you very much, Pedson Mumbere, for that report. We've got 6 minutes to the top of the hour. And for all of you that have actually been with us, wherever we started off from, it's amazing that you've been a very good viewer wherever you've been catching us from. I'm Jerome Paul Sonko with Winnie Wins and Akauchi on for the sign language interpretation. But as we're signing out, let's have a rerun of our top stories. In tonight's bulletin, local content sidelined. Legislators caution government of awarding contracts to foreigners leaving out locals. Elsewhere, Uganda's airline is a fragile startup. Uganda spends billions reviving the fragile startup Uganda Airlines at expense of losses. And in our exclusive tonight, we discuss the increasing debt burden in Uganda and the way forward for the economy. Thank you once again, and a happy Heroes Day celebrations to all of you and to the entire business community. I'm Jerome Paul Sonko to have a recap of our top stories for this week. Catch up on Sunday with the business edition at 8 p.m. To watch the top stories that have been transpiring throughout the entire business week. But from the entire newsroom and the editorial here at Plot 42 Nile Avenue, all we want to wish you is a blessed night and a good evening.
Smart 24, driving business.